Hey everyone, welcome to the Rugger, and most importantly, Happy New Year. Hope you had a great break. It's very sad, Christmas is over, but it has to happen sometime. So I thought I'd just go over what's been going on really the last couple of weeks, the last couple of games for the Irish provinces. How's the URC table looking? How's the season going for all four of them? What's it look like? Who's doing bad? Who's doing good? Who's in the middle? What needs a bit of work? And a little bit of fortune telling kind of predictions of who are going to be the bolters coming in, because the Six Nations is really about 10 minutes away, which is great. It's one kind of salve, I suppose, for the come down that is January. It's quite cold, it's very dark, but you do have the Six Nations in the ether there bubbling away. And I believe the squad is going to be announced next week, so that's pretty exciting. So without further ado, let's just start from the bottom. I've put the top eight teams in the URC, and then I've also put Connacht just under it. They're ranging in at number 12. Connacht are definitely the ones that are kind of lagging, I suppose, out of all four provinces this season. I suppose it's been like that. Well, it's been up and down for them, but you think with Stuart Lancaster at the helm, they would have had a better bounce. But I think all is not doom and gloom with Connacht. Now, the games they played, against Ulster, they were in that game till the very end a couple of weeks ago, until Ulster kind of pulled away just at the finish. But it was still encouraging that it was close, because Ulster, they're one of the best teams in the league right now. But the game against Leinster last week was a real beatdown. But you could see in the first half they were toe-to-toe at Leinster. So I see what Stuart Lancaster's trying to do. He's really giving them kind of tough love. This is the way he wants to play. If you run out of gas, tough. You're just going to end up losing the game. But the tempo that he's playing them at, the first half, they really did stick it to Leinster. So it's still encouraging. I know if you're a Connacht fan, it's tough. It's tough times. You kind of have to be patient and wait it out. But I still back Stuart Lancaster. I still think he's the guy for Connacht right now. It's just when you get a new coach, it's never going to happen straight away, or it might happen straight away and then fall back on you a bit. So I would say hang tough. There's still, I think it's the fitness that still has to catch up with the way this guy wants the team to play. Because after 50 minutes, they're just exhausted. I think it's a very demanding, high tempo rugby Stuart is envisioning for Connacht. So I would say, it's still cooking. Very rarely when a coach first comes in, everything is glorious. It takes time. So yeah, that's where they're at now, is 12 on the table and 16 points. Now, to fair comment, like number 8, we want Connacht to be in the knockouts for the end of this tournament. That's what we want. We want all four provinces, up against each other. What would be the dream would be 2 semi-finals and in all four Irish provinces. I think that would be hilarious and glorious. But 16 points they're at, and number 8 for Benetton, they're in at 19 points. So it's really not that much. There's very small margins. They're 4 places below Benetton, and yes, only 3 points behind them. So it's really still a free for all. It's a really close race. Anybody could come up the line. So that's encouraging. And I've also put an asterisk next to the teams that actually have a game kind of in the bank. Like they still haven't played one of their games because of the storms in the autumn. So, Connacht win another game and they're right in there in the top 8. So hopefully, let's see what 2026 brings for Connacht. But I'd love if they got into at least the knockouts. It's just things started turning around for them. Things started to click. I think Stuart Lancaster is really just waiting for it to click. He's getting there. There's encouraging signs, but it's a long road, and you just got to be patient. And he's got a lot of experience, so be interested to see how it works out for Connacht. Then we go up. We've got Benetton. They're on 19 points. Lions, South African team. One of my favorite YouTubers is a South African bloke. His team is Lions, so I'm always happy for him when the Lions are doing well. They're in at number 7. They're on 21 points. They also have a game in the bank. Then we've got Munster. Now, they're number 6. And there's nothing really between it. Look at the top 6. It's 30 points up to 36. There's really nothing in the top 6. So Munster at 30 points. They had a rough Christmas. They lost both their derbies. They lost against Leinster 13-8, which probably was their worst game of the season. I think some people really loved it, said it was a real proper test. I just thought it was really like the game never started. It was very in Thomond Park. It was very sluggish. It was very stop-start. It was tough. It was really tough watching. I kind of had to walk away and wash that off afterwards. Just really didn't enjoy that game. But then there was Ulster last week, which is a real domination, and that's the difference when we don't have our three power players from Munster, Ty Byrne, Jack Crowley, and Craig Casey. It's night and day sometimes. That was a real hammering from Ulster, 28 points to 3, barely a shot fired from Munster. So tough Christmas for Munster and Munster fans. But it's just a little bit still like Stuart Lancaster, Clayton McMillan. It's just a bit up and down. They've got much more important games ahead, so we'll see. There's still been some good performances. Their performance against Leinster, of course, in the autumn was a standout performance. It was like a statement win. But ever since then, they've just kind of petered off a bit. I don't know what's happened there, but we'll see. But just in terms of bolters, I didn't have any bolters for Connacht for the Six Nations squad besides the regular three of Bundy Aki, Mac Hansen, Finlay Bealham, Keane Prendergast. But I don't think Mac is going to make it in time for injury. But for Munster, you have your regulars for Munster too: Jack Crowley, Craig Casey, Tyke Byrne. But the bolters, kind of people that I want to see in the mix for the Six Nations squad, just somewhere there, even if they're a training panelist or whatever, just there in the squad. I'd like to see Thomas Ahern, Edwin Adogbo, Gavin Coombs. I feel like he's just not getting a chance, that he's kind of cursed. I think Andy Farrell just doesn't like him for some reason. I don't know. Just never seems to get a look at anymore. And then Brian Gleeson. Really want to see Brian Gleeson in the mix. Everybody's talking about him. He's interesting, a really young player, really exciting to watch. So, we'll see how it goes for Munster. But it's really not that big a hill to climb. You want to stay in, for a team like Munster, you want to stay in the top 4 because it's all about getting that home quarterfinal for the knockouts, So it's not a huge amount of points they need to acquire, but they just need to tighten up a few things. I think as long as you're in the 30s at this point, you're doing good. So we'll wait and see. Now, right up above them on the same number of points, but just edging over them because of the points difference, score difference, is Leinster, who really have grown into the season. They had a really, it was a close game against Munster, but the game against Connacht was just very clinical in the second half. Say what you want about the first half, it was really entertaining. At one point Connacht were ahead of them, but when they came back and just totally destroyed them in the second half, it was just very clinical execution of actions. It was quite glorious. Now, if you were a Leinster fan, it was really convincing. There's a lot of new guys on that squad. Bolters for Leinster. I mean, it's really hard to say because so many Leinster fans are symbiotic with the Irish squad these days. It's very big supplier of the national team. But if you wanted to say bolters, I suppose Harry Byrne. I don't think he was there last year. I think it was the two regulars, Sam and Jack, and I think Kieran Frawley was the third fly half. So usually it's 3 fly halves we had in the squad for your Six Nations. So I think Harry Byrne was in Bristol at the time, so he wasn't even in the conversation. But Harry Byrne is talked about. Andy Farrell mentioned him during a press conference during the November Internationals. He was like, guys, don't forget about Harry Byrne. He's coming back and he is looking good. He scores a lot of points for Leinster and he deserves another look. And he's gone abroad. He's gone to France. He's gotten some experience, some IP he's brought back with him. It happens a lot with these fly halves in Ireland. They go and they come back. I'm going to talk about another one later on, but obviously Johnny Sexton, when he went to Racing and came back, it seems like they do these tours of 1 year and then they come back and say, hey guys, look at what I've learned and look how much better I am now. So I think Harry Byrne should be on that ticket for the Six Nations when it's announced next week. And then this guy, Joshua Kenny. He's going by the alias of JJ Kenny sometimes. His name is Joshua, so I'm just going to call him that. But he's a winger, and he's looking really good. He is a fast guy, really fast winger. He scored a lot of tries this season for Leinster. He just came out of nowhere. He just came up from the academy on up. And it's great to see new wingers shaking things up because we've been reliant on classic, wingers in the past. Just the same kind of ones we've been using. James Lowe on the left wing, perpetually for the last 5 years. It's just good to see people challenging that. And then you have Mac Hansen on the right. That's usually the wingers we go for if everybody is fit and doing well. So for someone like Joshua Kenny to come along, I think it's great. It's just really shaking things up because he's really got that X factor. He's one to watch. So that's Leinster and their possible bolters. We go up a bit more. We got Cardiff at 31 points. So that's the highest club from Wales. They're at number 4, doing quite well. And then the most successful Irish club this season so far, by about a hair, I'd say only 1 point, is Ulster. So Ulster just seem to be, one everybody's rooting for, because I can't remember they've just played this well. The last time they played so well. So they're very exciting to see. They just seem to have a really relaxed, not relaxed, but very settled squad. And it's not like that every single position is an ace, but it just seems that they're working so well together. And these guys are breaking out. A lot of talk about, like, let's have more Ulster players on the team, on the Irish team. And I think if Andy has been watching and he's been going to the Ulster games, he's got to. You can't really deny, that they are looking really good. The one thing I would say for Ulster that's kind of like pulling them a bit of shade on them is the fact that they're in the Challenge Cup this year and not the Champions Cup. You've got Munster and Leinster, they're in the Champions. Ulster and Connacht, they're in the Challenge. The Challenge is like the B team of the Champions Cup. It's like if you're not good enough to get in the Champions Cup, you play in the Challenge instead. So I suppose that's, just a bit of shade on them, but, no big deal. Still, for the URC, they're doing quite well. They're number 3. They're on 31 points, and they still have one game they still have to play because of the storm earlier on last year. So they have that in the bank, and that just shows they still have more points owed to them. So they beat Connacht, they absolutely thrashed Munster. Breakouts for the Six Nations, Tom Stewart as hooker. Usually they will go with probably Dan Sheehan, Ronan Kelleher, and then Gus McCarthy, all 3 Leinster lads. But I would love to see Tom Stewart get a bite of the apple at hooker for Ireland. He's done very well and seems to be a really good leader too. He's got kind of like captain aura going about him. Cormac Izujuku definitely should be looked at. And for the second row, Nathan Doak, I think, should be our third scrum half. It's very obvious it's going to be James Gibson Park, Craig Casey, and then who else? During November, Ireland picked Caelan Blade, and I was like, that's bizarre. That's not the right thing to do. We need someone younger that we know is going to be coming into form for the World Cup. And Caelan Blade is just getting a little bit on. So I think Nathan Doak has just been fantastic for Ulster. Really quick with the ball. And he's a big, tall scrum half. He's really a bit like Conor Murray. So I think he's just great to watch and should be in the hat there. Jude Postlewaite as well, another Ulster player to have a look at. Zach Ward, another winger that we really need to in the mix. I think if we have Joshua Kenny and Zach Ward, if we throw those 2 wingers into the mix, that's really going to make the established wingers kind of sit up and really try and bring their A game to the squad, because those guys, they're hungry. You can feel they're really thirsty, fast wingers. They're trying to prove a point. I believe Zach Ward was from the Sevens originally, and he's just got some gas on him. He's got serious wheels. He's a great winger. Special note for Ulster, he's not an Irish qualified player. I don't think so. Werner Koch is a South African player who's on the Ulster team, and he just seems to have stormed onto the stage this season. Every time he had the ball against Munster, he was creating chaos, creating havoc. He is great to watch. Just special mention to him. He looks a little bit like Triple H from WWF back in the 2000s. He's got that long wrestler hair kind of flowing off him. So very entertaining guy, just really good to watch. He's just got it. He's just got that rugby gene that, he's just going to really screw up the plan for the opposing team. He just seems to have been growing every game. He's just getting better. So great to watch. They have an extra game. So we'll see what happens with Ulster. And then above, you've got Glasgow Warriors. They're on 34 points. They're my new favourite team of the URC outside of the Irish provinces ever since they beat Toulouse in that Champions Cup game. It was unbelievable. Best game of the year, I think. So, it was fairy tale stuff. And then you got the Stormers, who are just like lording it over everybody. They're the South African club. 36 points. They also have a game in the bank that they have to play. So they're really steaming ahead. They are the force to be reckoned with at the moment. We'll see, but I think they're going to go all the way probably to semi-finals, final. I think the last final they were in was the game against Munster a few years back, but they are doing quite well. So that is what the table looks like right now, the URC table. So it's in a good place. It's all to play for. There are games still to be played that should have been played last autumn. There's barely any points difference between really the top 6 and, just gunning for Connacht here. Really want them to get in that top 8. I still think it's possible. Hopefully they're still going into the tournament. We'll see. So that's the URC table, and their bolters Wonder, is there any other bolters I've missed? But yeah, the Challenge Cup is on Sunday this weekend. One of them is clashing the Connacht one. They're playing Montpellier. That's going to clash with the Munster game, unfortunately. So you have to pick one of those. And then Ulster playing the Cheetahs also on Sunday later on that day. But the real big one, and I think they're both away games for Ulster and Connacht. But the big ones obviously are the Champions Cup games. So tomorrow on Saturday, 5:30 in the evening, we have Leinster against La Rochelle. So we all know the story with La Rochelle. They're a very famous rival of Leinster. They're really they've been the thorn in Leinster's side for a couple of Champions Cup finals a few years ago, and they were just squeaking by them. Coached by Ron O'Gara. It's a very spicy rivalry. The one in 2023 was especially so close. So Leinster and Leinster fans, they got a score to settle still with La Rochelle. They've won the last few games with them. La Rochelle have fallen off a bit in quality the last couple of years. They're not the force that they once were, but it's still a great French club team. So we'll see. But you can know that's going to be a great atmosphere. That's going to be played in Dublin tomorrow, and it's going to be, it's going to be wild. The atmosphere is going to be spicy. Leinster are not going to hold back. I had to put in their first 15 is pretty world class, even though that their star props are both out injured. Andrew Porter and Ty Farrong, they won't be playing. And then just the conveyor belt just rolls out, more great players. You got Paddy McCarthy for loose head, Thomas Clarkson for tight head. They're not capped heavily, but you can see that they aren't going anywhere. They just have potential all over them. They play great. Very reliable guys, very young, still learning, but always play great games. And then of course you got Dan Sheehan for the hooker. Then you got Joe McCarthy and James Ryan, who I think is probably the deadliest lock combo in the world right now. Joe McCarthy is back. It's just such a big thing. It's a big thing for Leinster. It's a big thing for Ireland. We really missed him over the November, so it's really good to have him back because he really is just so great at creating havoc. And then you've got very tried and tested backline with Jack Conan, Josh Van der Fleer, Caelan Doris as captain. That's the Irish backline. Then you got Sam Prendergast, James Gibson Park for the halfbacks. You got our new friend Rico Ioane and Robbie Henshaw for the centres. And then what's a really great back there, I think, is Tommy O'Brien, Joshua Kenny for the wingers, and then Kieran Frawley for fullback. So that is really a high quality first 15. So yeah, we'll see. It will be it will be straight away. It'll be out the gates kind of thing. It'll be like the 2023 final. I think they're really just going to jump into each other and really try and get in their faces, and it'll just be about endurance. It's going to be hopefully be high scoring, but the energy is going to be there. I don't think it's going to be a sluggish, slow stop-start game. I think it's going to be really, they're going to play both with the ball very out wide and just run around the pitch and try and get each other tired. So we'll see. We'll see how they get on. Then we've got, of course, Munster against Toulon. Now that's on Sunday, and that is going to be over in Toulon. And our three heavy hitters are back: Ty Byrne, Jack Crowley, Craig Casey. Is that going to be enough? Apparently not. Toulon are heavy favourites for this game, even though they just got absolutely rolled by La Rochelle in the top 14, 66-0. So I don't know. I think that's bit generous to Toulon, but they were resting players. I think this was the game they were waiting for, so we'll see. But I think Munster will still stick it up to them. Got people like Coombs, Adogbo, Tom Farrell, Calvin Nash, Tom Ahern, Brian Gleeson. They're all on the squad. So yeah, hopefully we'll see what happens. But it'd be great to get the Munster win. It's quite close in their Champions Cup table as well because everyone has lost a game. So the points is very close, so it is an important game. Let's see, news. A little bit of rugby news through the rumor mill, and now it's slowly materializing into truth, but it's nothing set in stone yet. But the buzz is that Joey Carberry, the guy who used to be a 10 for Ireland, who used to walk in Johnny Sexton's shadow, who went to Bordeaux, played there, won a Champions Cup with them, great for him, is now rumoured to be coming back to Ireland. So he's got one more season in his contract with Bordeaux this year. And then he could possibly come back into the fold. Again, like I was saying before, these fly halves, they go away, they go to France, then they learn something, come back. They're a big deal again. It's like their mojo gets revamped when they do this, So I think it's great, but it's Leinster that are the people that apparently are looking out for this guy. And it's like, do Leinster really need another fly half? Leo Cullen was in a press conference and he said, well, you can never have enough good players. It's fair enough if they can get him. But you just feel like they've got Stan Prendergast, who is like the heir apparent, who's fully backed, has all this investment, all this hype. And then you have Harry Byrne, who's back on the scene, who's Andy Farrell was talking about in press conferences. And then you have this guy really far back in the room that just played one game so far for Leinster, but already is making a name for himself, called Casper Gabriel. And he is supposed to be a big deal, next big thing kind of thing. So you have three fly halves there already in the conversation, and then Joey Carbery comes along, and it's like, is that making things a bit awkward then? Is that making it more difficult to pick who's going to be the fly half? He's a good player, no doubt, and he was just always in Johnny Sexton's way. That was like, Ireland just kept just using Johnny Sexton as much as possible. Joey Carbery on 5 minutes, game over, and it was just boring. It was terrible. Joey Carbery just couldn't catch a break. So it's been talked about, but nothing has been agreed yet. But they are talking to Joey about that. Ulster, I believe, are also trying to get him in. That would be wild, and that would be, I think, better really if you're trying to keep your fly halves balanced in Ireland. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But by the end of the season, things will become more revealed. Also, Hugo Keenan is back training now, which is great news. I wasn't really sure when he was going to be back because he had hip surgery. God knows how long that takes. It must be case by case. Not a fun surgery to get at all. You could see by the end of the Lions tour he was knackered. So he had that surgery. Now he's back training, so that's good because he's the fullback we want on the Irish team. So yeah, good to hear that he's back. He's recovering, good enough to be doing training. That's a good sign. A bit of coach talk this week from a few pundits, and there was just talk in general. Now that we're in 2026, it's just a year till the World Cup, really. Once 2027 rolls around, everyone is in World Cup mode. Even 6 months before it starts, it's like you're looking closer and closer at the players to be on that squad. So really, this year is the last year you can experiment. You can play around and try out new players, because by this time next year you got to start really whittling down. Okay, who are we sticking with? But then, of course, not just players, about coaches, because people have been talking about what is going to happen when Andy Farrell's contract is up. So it was a really interesting podcast I heard about on Indosport, and there was the good news with Ireland is there is a lot of contenders for that. We're very rich in candidates for the Irish coaching gig. That's definitely true. So okay, first of all, there is always the possibility that Andy Farrell could just stay here. Let's say he gets us into a semi-final. He breaks the curse. Fantastic. He makes history. Andy, please stay coaching for us. Andy says, yes, absolutely. There is that possibility. There's no cap on how many years a coach can coach an international team. I don't believe so. What's his name? The Scottish coach at the moment, Gregor Townsend, he has been coaching Scotland since 2017. So that's nearly 10 years. It would be 10 years for Andy by the time the World Cup is over. So he, if you read his book, he clearly loves living in Ireland. His family love living here. He's got a son, Gabriel, who's playing rugby here in, I think, Blackrock. He's 16 years old. It's a terrible age to uproot somebody. If I was Andy and I was settled, I'd be like, I'm not going anywhere. At least one more roll of the dice, I would be thinking for Andy. And, he just seems to be, I don't know, he just seems to work with Ireland. And so you have that Andy Farrell staying there. Let's say for argument's sake, he doesn't. And he hits the road. He decides he's going to go backpacking in Asia for 5 years or something. He's made a ton of money and he wants to take his family out on adventures. Okay. He heads off into the sunset. Who's going to take up the mantle? Ronan O'Gara. That's the first name that comes to my mind. Not because I think he is the best coach in the world, but I just think it would be hilarious and entertaining up the wazoo if he was the Ireland coach. It would create a lot of backlash. Some people don't like him in Ireland. Some people absolutely love him. I think he's great. He won the Champions Cup 2 years in a row with La Rochelle. That's no joke. That's hard to do. So I think he's got the minerals and the experience, to really just not even do a club, just go straight into the Irish role and see what happens. I think that would be great. I think he would be box office. I think he'd be a ruthless coach. He'd be different to Andy Farrell, but you can bet it would be entertaining. Would he do it? I don't know. His contract is up in 2027. So all these coaches that that are in the hat, their contracts, most of them are going to be up by the end of the next World Cup. So that's why it's like everything is open now. Everything's on the table and can be discussed. So Raj is there. Okay, that's one guy. Only thing about Raj is he's really got an attitude. Like he gets in trouble all the time for back chatting and kind of getting a bit scrappy with people. He's got that reputation. Ireland would not like that. The IRFU would not like that. They'd be more conservative. They'd be more, you got to be reserved. You got to, put on a good face, be a gentleman kind of thing. So that's one kind of con in hiring them to the IRFU's kind of vision. But we'll see. Then you got Paul O'Connell. Now, we only coached Ireland for 2 games during the summer against very tier 2 teams, but still won them. And you can see it. Paul O'Connell, yeah, he's a legend. He's an Irish rugby legend. He's he's got lots of experience with these. He's used to the setup. But you see, his job is really the line out, and that has not been firing for a while now. So it's kind of like, I don't know. We'll see. But maybe he's better at the head coach role. He delegates the line out to somebody else. So, be a lot of people are happy if he got the job. Then you have Simon Easterby, who was coach for the Six Nations, and he only lost 1 game. So to be fair, he's also very experienced in the setup. And remember, when Andy Farrell started, I think he lost 2 or 3 games the first year he was coach. Everyone was like, oh, he's rubbish, he's never going to do well. And then, complete turnaround a year later. Simon Easterby only lost 1 game in the Six Nations last year. Just 1. We were right up there with France and England on the table. It just came down to bonus points. So I'd say give him a break. He kind of, I don't know, he didn't necessarily get flack, but I don't think he got enough praise for doing a good enough job. The first time you're a head coach and you're in the Six Nations, dropped in like that, it was stressful for him. It's a very daunting task. So I think he did well. I think he's definitely a person to be in the hat. Then you got Stuart Lancaster. Well, that's a real bolter. That's only if Connacht really pick up their game the next year. But, this guy did coach England. He's got that international experience. He made Leinster into a real attacking beast. So could be, when you have the resources of the Irish team, obviously going to be a lot more than Connacht. Could be a match made in heaven. So we'll see. That's another interesting name for the mix. Johnny Sexton, I don't know. He doesn't really have experience coaching besides, he's done kicking with the Lions. He's been helping out with Leinster, helping out with the Irish team too, but not a predominant role where he's, in press conferences talking about things. It seems that he's still kind of in the background a bit. Now, he could be doing a very good job without us knowing, but I think it's too early for him. I think he needs to go out and kind of coach a club first. He'd be very young to be coaching. I don't know. It just seems like he's still a bit green and just needs a few more experience under his belt, like just, coaching a club for a couple of years. But, towards the end of his career, it was like having a coach on the field. He has the coaching gene in him for sure. He could be a legendary coach down the years in the future. So I'd be surprised if he got it, but definitely still a name to watch out for. Then you got people just kind of like, real on the fringe, like Felix Jones and Jerry Flannery. They're both working for South Africa now, but still very good at what they do with the work they've done with South Africa. They haven't coached international, like as a head coach before, but, being Irish guys, I think they'd be welcomed in very well. They've done just such a good job with the Springboks, turning into really just the greatest team in history right now, definitely in the world. They've made them into a wrecking machine. So they'd be lucky even to have them in the setup, just, attacking coach, defense coach, something like that. That would be dream. If you got a real mean team like that, coaching ticket like that. Leo Cullen, I just don't see it because, I don't know, he's just come close so many times with Leinster. He's kind of become a bit of a pantomime villain for a lot of fans, Leinster fans and non-Leinster fans. So that's a tough one. I just think he's really like at the bottom there. He'd be very kind of, there's just so many more people ahead of him, I think, that people would want. But it's worth mentioning, he has coached Leinster for a very long time, gotten them close so many times, and the fact that the Leinster team is, for the majority's sake, the Irish team, still worth mentioning. But I just don't see it. So yeah, that's just a real gallop of coaching talk. You know what's going to happen online. It's exciting. I'm really interested to see. I'd be happy just keeping Andy Farrell. He'd probably have to make a statement though and just improve upon his last World Cup and get past that elusive quarterfinal win. But we'll see. So yeah, that's a rundown of what's been happening in the URC, where Ireland is going. A bit about the Six Nations squad. I might try and do a video on what the ideal Six Nations squad would be before it's released next week. That would be fun to do. There's a lot of people that you're going to expect to be on that team, but there's always a vulture or two. And there's always injuries. You never know. Between now and the Six Nations, we have two Champions Cup games, two Challenge Cup games. Anybody could get injured. Anything could happen. So yeah, we'll see. So yeah, I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe. Happy New Year again, and enjoy your rugby. Thanks. Bye.